Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. This is Jamie Green with the Let's Talk Destiny podcast. I am so excited today to have a young lady with me who has really blessed me by allowing me to share my story and prompting me and pushing me to continue my healing journey. So today I welcome to my platform Ms. Megan Rodriquez. And Megan has worked with so many women and men as well, but entrepreneurs who have experienced domestic violence, or as she prefers to call it, family violence, which I think is a phenomenal way to put it. And how we went through that season and on our journey, but now we are walking towards healing, walking through healing, being healed. Some of us have reached that place now where we can reach back and pull others to our place of healing as we continue to do our businesses and be entrepreneurs in this society. So Megan, I want you to tell us a little bit about you. What are some of your hobbies? What are things that you like to do? What makes your heart smile?
What makes my heart smile? Well, thanks so much for having me on, Jamie. I appreciate the opportunity to come talk. It's not often I'm on this side of the mic, so I love
That's
doing
right.
it. A little about me. I, in this stage in my life, am super blessed to be a stay-at-home human. So I love to cook. I love to bake. My garden just went to sleep for the winter, but I do garden. So I'm in the process of finishing up canning and that kind of stuff. Mom of two. I have my bio son and a stepson, and just really am blessed to. I mean, right now, like my indoor hobby right now is I'm repainting the house and just refreshing the house and doing things like that. But yeah, I really love my creative space is really in food and cooking and sharing and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of what makes my heart sing these days, a little bit.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And guys, I want you to know that Megan is a newlywed. Doesn't she have that newlywed glow?
I am that I
I'm so
am.
happy.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm so happy when I hear stories like yours, Megan, from women who have been through abusive relationships, marriages that were not, in their best interest, didn't help them, caused all kinds of trauma. And then to see you walk through that, come out on the other side of healing and experience a whole brand new life. I'm just so excited for you, and congratulations.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. Yeah, it's been big to
So
be on this side of it.
great. So Megan, tell us a little bit, the name of your organization. First you had Flow Working, the Entrepreneurs Podcast,
Yep.
and you launched that in 2019. And
Hmm.
now you have Flow Rising. What
Yeah.
does that name mean, and where does it come from, the Flow Rising?
Yeah. So, I mean, flow, yeah, I'm a very spiritual human, not necessarily religious, but very spiritual. And I'm a very in tune with water. I'm a very much a water person. And so a lot of that flow, but then there's also that flow state, like just that place of being where you're just everything's even when things around you aren't great, you're settled and you're happy and you find peace. And yes, my first podcast was Flow Working. We did talk about all about entrepreneurship, but I really felt there was just a disconnection. Like there was just something. And actually it's funny, I happened to be taking a bath, again, water. I was meditating in a bath one day, and it was just like, why I love podcasting, but why do I feel disconnected? And that's when it was like, you need to bring it all together. Like, talk to people who are entrepreneurs, but who are like me, have walked that path of family violence, who have walked through it, who have come out of it, who are on that healing journey. Um, and that's where Flow Rising. And it was really just became about like, as we come out of that space of surviving, that our energy gets returned to us, that we find that healing space, and we really do start rising. We really find a way
Yes.
to and just be whole and healed. And as you said, bring others with us. So just, like water rising, it rises, the term that the tide rises all boats, but it's that same kind of thing.
Yeah.
We're just bringing your own energy back to a state of wholeness and being healthy. And then that's what we talk about on the show now, like I said, is being an entrepreneur, but really from that perspective of someone who's like me, walked through family and domestic violence in our pasts. So yeah, that's kind of what it is.
I love that. I love that. I was thinking about the flow rising, and I too love water. So of course, I visualize the water flowing, even with the ebbing. And some places it's flowing smoother than other places, but it's constantly flowing. Um, but I didn't realize that that's where that name came from. So that's powerful. That's powerful. And we have congratulations from Mutima, who is one of my greatest supporters. And I'm just excited because I get to talk to you. Like you said, you're normally on the other side. Megan has a podcast, and you guys really need to go check it out. There are so many stories. I look at it on YouTube. There's so many conversations that she has with people who have gone through domestic family violence and been healed, and the stories that they share are amazing. So I encourage you to do that. Not right now,
but stay here, go later.
Okay, so what has, as you know, I think I shared this with you when I was your guest, that the podcast that I have is purpose driven. And in that, it is like, I really want people to get a hold to what your purpose is for being here, why you're here, and what you can do to recognize your purpose, acknowledge your purpose, and move in your purpose. Do you feel that what you're doing right now is a part of that purpose for you?
Yeah, I think it's one of the beautiful parts about my healing. And actually, it's my husband who really started bringing this to light as we started dating and getting into a relationship, where he said, again, being a stay-at-home human now, he's like, right now, your purpose is to heal. You've been through so much, and we've even just been talking this last week about some of the stuff that I've been through and some of the stories. And he's like, he goes, you are a badass survivor. He's like, pardon the language, but yeah, he's like, you really, really don't see it. And I think what it is now that I'm starting to see as I progress in the healing journey is really that, a lot of my personal purpose is helping others have a space to have a voice, because that's one of my talents, because I've been through so many things. I can sit with people in that hard space. I can hear those hard stories and there's so many people who are like, want to fix it or change it, and I have such compassion and such, love for people who've been through it. But I also see, get so proud when people are sharing their stories, because I'm like, you're so strong. Like, look at what you've been through. Look at that's really what, like, my podcast, but even just in my personal life, like I have a women's group, and people come over and they'll meet me for the first time, and they'll start sharing stories. And then afterwards they're like, why did I share all that with you? And I'm like, that's who I am. Like, I've just always been that human being that, I could walk into a room of 99 people, and that one person who just needs to talk will find me.
Right.
And because that's just who I am. And again, just that compassionate piece for understanding that people need to speak. It's just part of that healing, even just the beginning of healing. That was how I have a friend that if I hadn't been able to find my voice with her, I'm not sure I would have left the relationship. I mean, I would have eventually, but that just being able to speak that truth. And so I think a lot of what I do now, it really is finding that, and I don't think that any individual has like a single, like, oh, I'm supposed to just do this one thing. I think it's really multifaceted, that we find what brings us, like you asked at the beginning, what brings me joy? What's my joy space? What brings my heart, light, and leaning into that, is really kind of where I find my personal purpose.
That's awesome. And it's funny that Natasha just posted this in the comment, that you're a safe place, because that's exactly what I was getting ready to say. Someone said to me last week, I think it was, I really lose track of days. Someone said to me that they feel like I'm a safe space, that they could tell me anything and I wouldn't judge them or walk away from them because of whatever. And that's exactly what I was getting ready to say to you. And then Natasha commented it, that's why that one person out of those 100 people,
Sorry.
we've got another guest, gravitates to you because they feel that from you, that you are a safe place. Hey, baby, what's his name? Okay, I can't hear you.
No, the pooper scooper people just showed up. So I have 3 dogs. Hang on just a second. It gets chaotic.
Well, you know, life happens.
They never do this on my own personal podcast, right? When I'm on someone else's, they do. Come here.
They have something they're trying to tell you.
There's someone in my backyard cleaning up their poop.
That's funny.
Okay, come here. Okay.
But yeah, I just wanted to say definitely you're a safe space, and that's why people talk to you.
Yeah.
My friend Mutima, she's always pointing out like hi to the non-human guests. Like she's one of those people that I was doing one of my ministry podcasts one day, and my grandson comes in and he's just talking, and he's climbing all over me and this, that, and other. And I'm like, oh my God, like, should I just stop this or this live or what? And she said, no, he's just, representing the children's ministry kind of.
This is part of my life. Come here.
Exactly.
They're leaving now, so they'll quiet just a second.
They just want to make sure that you know somebody's out there.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah. That's funny.
And then I turn my mom voice on and they stop. Get down. You 3. I call them my adorable terrors.
Oh, no.
I love them, but they're part of they're part of my healing space because, in all honesty, without there are days, boo, get down, boo. Without them, like some days I'm like, I don't know, like we just go lay in bed on those days when it's like, oh, today's a grieving day, today's a hard day. I have my fur babies, and I think we all need that. We all need that.
I love it. Yeah. And you know what? And I'm glad you brought that up because as Mutima said, safe spaces terminate shame. So when people feel like they can't come to you, they don't have to drag that shame with them. And if they happen to be wearing that shame, they can release it once they start talking to you. Yeah. And even with regard to your fur babies, I was thinking about what you said about on those days when you're grieving or when you're having a rough spot or when you're, because the healing, this is what I learned, is healing is lifelong. And you don't just wake up one day and say, I'm healed, it's all over, that's it. I'm never going to feel that again. I'm never going to remember that again. And so it's important what you just said, that people realize that, yes, we are healed from some things, we're healed in some areas, but as long as we're in this realm, we're going to continue our healing. Do you agree?
So true. So true. Yep. Nope. I say grief is a fickle thing. You think you've gone through it and traversed it, and then some days it just shows up and says, nope, we're doing this again. And so, yeah, it is a journey for sure. It is not a destination.
Absolutely. I love that. So Megan, you were married for 18 years before, and that was during the time when you experienced the domestic and family violence. How do you think in this, because this is the month that has been set aside from domestic violence
Mhm.
awareness, is one of the main reasons I definitely wanted to talk with you, because I love where you are now, and I love that you're transparent about where you've come from.
Mhm.
That whole experience affected not just you, but your son as well. How
Mhm.
is he doing?
So, oh, my kid is amazing. So, I think the easiest way to say it is that he and I mean, all mothers and sons bond. All mothers and children bond in certain ways, but because it was always he and I had to create a safe space for him. I mean, I grew up in an abusive household. On the surface, I didn't understand it was abusive, and so, but neither one of my parents ever created a safe space. They were both abusive in their own ways, emotionally unhealed humans, not traveling their own healing journeys, which of course then bleeds off to the children. And I think that's sort of how it was with my son in some regards. But in a lot of ways, I would just try and create this haven and this bubble of safe space,
Yeah.
that he and I would do things together. And when he was younger, it was always baking. I would bake with him. Hey, let's your father's gone for a while. Let's do a thing. And then for a while, he stopped wanting to do that, mostly because in 2020 I was baking like crazy, and he's like, "It's too much, mom." But what's beautiful is he's 14, almost 15 now. And he recently came to me and said, "Hey, I really would love to start baking. Thank you, YouTube." He watches a guy on YouTube who's an adult who bakes,
Yeah.
and he really is just like loving this guy. And my kiddo is fantastic. Like he loves to learn new skills, and he dives into life just wholeheartedly. And so watching him, over the past couple years since I met my current spouse, that watching my son move from a state of trauma triggered all the time and angry response, and I was really worried that he might just travel down the path of his father. And it happens. You grow up in
That's right.
abuse, and sometimes people just aren't ready. But we got him therapy, and we started family dynamics that just really have helped him blossom. And he is, I have always said he's my godsend. He's my reason for a lot of things, but he is
Yeah.
such a beautiful human being. And watching him heal, and knowing that as I heal, it heals him too. Like everything that
Right.
he sees
Right.
me going through, he and we talk so much and are so open about it that it's just, it's I look forward to that adult relationship as we're growing in the teen years. Like I don't sometimes I've heard people say, "Oh, I feel like I lost my baby." And I'm like, "No, I'm just getting to know this amazing human being and who he's becoming and all the things that he's into." And it's just a lot of joy to watch him heal
That's awesome.
himself.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love to
Yeah.
hear that, because I'm all about mothers and
Yeah.
relationships with their children. So,
Yeah.
at what point and what made you come to the decision that you had to get out of that situation, and how did you make that transition?
Uh, it's a good question. I mean, there is an actual single point, and again, with my podcast, people say this all the time. There is an aha moment. Mine came in March
Yeah.
of 2018. I had a job at the time, toxic environment, but I had an aha moment at that moment that I was in this like really angry state, and I was wanting people to change. My mother, my ex, my boss, the people around me, and I finally heard my own voice for the first time tell me that no, I can change.
Yeah.
Like it literally, I was 37. It took me 2 years after that, but I was 37 at the time, and it was just like it literally had never occurred to me that I could actually choose change. Like I could intentionally choose the life I wanted. I had just been following the pattern, following
Right.
the
That's right.
program.
That's right.
But really what it took, I mean, January 2019 I filed for divorce, canceled the divorce because I did what a lot of people, and I always tell this part of the story because I want women to know, men to know. When you are trying to leave an abusive situation, it's okay if you don't just walk. Sometimes you can't. I had to make a safe space. I had to use everything I had and everything I knew about him. And I used the term intentionally to manipulate him because I realized I understood what he needed. He needed the victim. He needed the story of she took my son away. So he'd leave. And I did that. Like, I got him to sign divorce papers and sign away his rights. No lawyers, no court, no nothing.
Wow.
I don't usually recommend it, but it was just something I didn't have the money to actually go through the process that way. And I was
Yeah.
like, but I'm very intelligent. I have a brain. I can figure out how to do this.
Yeah.
And yes, there was I look back and I'm like, yeah, I lied a lot. Do I care? No, because it got us out. And I
Yeah.
do. I look back and go, actually, he had taught me how to manipulate him all those years. Like, he wanted to be the victim. He wasn't going to change that. He
Yeah. Yeah.
wanted his life to be, crappy. He wasn't going to change that. So just give it to him. Be like, and I said things to him like, we're just going to separate for 3 months because I live in Colorado and the house was mine in my own name. But
Okay.
because he lived with me, he was technically my tenant. So I had to give him a 30-day notice. I had to give him a 30-day written notice. He didn't know that. So I
Wow.
gave it to him in writing. I emailed him and said, hey, I want you out by this date. And we're just going to do a 3-month separation. Well, as soon as he was gone, that's it. Locks changed. You're not coming back. Like,
Yeah.
but even after that, because of the kiddo, it was hard for me because I
Yeah.
still was trying to help my son maintain a relationship. But as soon as my son started voicing, I don't want anything to do with dad. Yep. I'm
Yeah.
going to honor that. And we haven't talked to him in almost 2 years now, which is
And
great.
you know what? That is so interesting because people who are not in this situation will automatically say, girl, just go.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Yep.
like I heard it not that long ago. Just go. Like, don't even pack up anything. Don't what, just go with what, just go. But it's not always that simple.
Nope.
And I love that you, even in the midst of that trauma, were insightful enough to see what needed to work for you so that you and your son could make a safe departure.
Yep.
Because if you're going to get yourself, in a situation where it's going to be even worse, where somebody could end up hurt or even dead, it's just not worth it. So I love that story. I've never heard that before, but
Yeah.
that's powerful that you knew what it took to get him to do what you needed him to do because he'd been manipulating you for all those years. So,
Yep.
oh well.
Yeah.
I love that story. Mutima expressed some thoughts that maybe you want to
Yeah, I
address
could see
real
the
quick.
question there. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Muchiba, we could have an entire hour-long podcast on just this topic. And actually, there are, if you could go watch my podcast, I've had a lot of guests talk about this, but unresolved and unhealed trauma affects parenting because, I mean, from my personal experience with my parents did not know how to process emotions. Some of it was societal, a lot of it was their own childhood traumas, that kind of stuff. So instead of teaching me how to process emotions, they told me emotions were bad. And so I never learned how to process emotions, which made me a people-pleasing, codependent human being, which of course walked me right into an abusive marriage. If I chose not to heal, if I chose not to heal my traumas, interestingly enough, my husband's ex-wife is this human being. Lots of trauma, loves to create trauma, loves to create drama. And sadly, we no longer have a connection with my stepson because she has poisoned the well so much, making us look like the bad guys and taking him. And now he's walking down this really dark path that we can't do anything about. When we don't work on ourselves, we can't help our children understand what it means to be a whole, healthy human. Even in good marriages, I almost seriously, and I tell people this, when you get in your first healthy relationship after never having healthy relationships in your life, it is harder than the unhealthy relationship. Because I almost, in many ways, if my husband hadn't been doing his own self-healing and his own personal work, he wouldn't have been able to see what I was doing when I was literally trying to tear the house down.
Yeah.
Starting fights for no reason. And he recognized, oh my gosh, this is unhealed trauma showing up. You're
Yeah.
not actually angry with me. And so it can actually destroy people who are not prepared or haven't gone through that healing space by themselves to go, oh, I see what's going on here.
Right. Right.
And so it can actually tear apart really amazing relationships unintentionally because you don't know what healthy looks like. It doesn't actually feel safe or comfortable in the beginning because it's so different than anything. It's taken me 2 years to just be like, oh no, he's actually consistent. What's consistent? What? Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not like I'm not
Yeah.
waiting for that other shoe to drop and things.
Yeah.
But again, that's because I'm healing inside a relationship. And the last thing I will say that is there are certain things that cannot be healed outside of a relationship. If relationships are what caused the trauma, getting into a healthy relationship is one of the only ways you can actually heal it because you have to experience what
Wow.
healthy looks like, what it feels like, what it sounds and smells and touch, all the things of healthy. There staying single is great. I think it's beautiful. I did it for a number of years, but at some point either you're going to get stuck in the loop of not actually progressing in your healing because you're not actually opening yourself up to be loved because you can't do that outside of a relationship. And it doesn't have to be romantic. It can be a deep friendship. It can
That's
be a deep
powerful. That's
partnership.
powerful.
But
Yes.
relationships actually heal those relationship wounds and there's no other way to go through it.
Wow, that's powerful right there. That is some powerful information because we tend to, when we've been traumatized, when we've been hurt, when we've been, just wounded, like what we feel is beyond repair, we withdraw into ourselves and we get on this, I don't need nobody. I got myself, long as I got me, I don't need anybody thing. And it's dangerous and
Mhm.
it's not even realistic
Nope.
because my mother used to say, no man is an island. We all
Mm-mm.
need somebody.
Yep.
So, wow, thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. That
Yeah.
that really, I think that's going to be one of the most powerful outtakes from our conversation today because people have to heal by being honest enough to say, this is the spot where I got hurt, but I'm going to let somebody come into that spot
Yep.
so that I can get healed. Oh
Yeah,
my.
because we can self-heal, we can love those pieces of ourselves, but I can tell you that having my husband see and love on those pieces of me that were just always bashed and bruised and battered and just having that, it is so safe and so healing, and it helps me see it for myself because we
Yeah.
can't see those pieces till someone shows it to us, and then you go, "Oh, that is a love. Oh, I do love that about me." Yeah,
Yeah.
you just can't see it otherwise.
Oh, wow. Natasha said that's a powerful truth. Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. So once you recognize that you deserve better than that situation, and you started putting a plan into motion to get out of that situation, and you removed yourself and your son to a safe place, how did you turn that experience into the awesome thing that you're doing today?
One step at a time. So I actually, because I got my ex to leave in August of 2019. We got divorced in April of 2020. So everybody knows what that means. I spent 2020 alone. So for me, and I look at that it was coupled with the pandemic and everything
Yeah.
else. Yeah, I use the term find a way to say yes. Some people say baby steps, some people say small steps. I mean, there's lots of different ways, but small victories. I can remember that some days, especially because my parents at that time would take my son for a while. They'd take him for like a week at a time because they were part of our COVID group. Um, get putting my feet on the floor. If I moved from laying down to feet on the floor, that was great, and I celebrated it, and I went yes, and then I'd
Yeah.
get right back in bed. Giving myself permission to just do what was needed. Some days it was 10 showers. I'm not kidding. Like some days it was like I need another shower. Go back in. some of the little things, like realizing that I didn't have to do all the dishes.
Yeah.
Hey, do they have to get? This was something I read in the middle of it. Run the dishwasher 3 times. Who cares? Throw all the pots and pans in the dishwasher. Do the things that your mother was like, dude, we don't do that. Do it. Like, it seriously. I think that's that piece is it has to be that snowball. You have to find momentum. I only recently, and I mean like within the last few weeks, have realized, oh, I'm not anxious every day. That was, but and I think the other piece that I will say that is so vital that everybody forgets and nobody talks about. We talk about the mental emotional healing. You have to heal your body. Your body remembers more than your brain ever does. And until I started doing physical somatic work healing, exercise, diet, focusing on the actual physical healing piece, I was not able to actually move the needle with anxiety or with stress
Wow.
that was actually one of those. And there are so many resources out there to do it. But actually focusing on healing your physical body, even if you were not physically abused. Mental emotional abuse is stored in our bodies. We don't realize that.
Truth.
And that actually those are some of the things that it was just like, and then just finding, as silly as it sounds, finding ways to, I can remember one of my first healers was like, you need to tell yourself I love you. And I went, you're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But that was 4 years ago. Today, there is not a single day that goes by when I don't look at myself and go, "Ooh, I love you. You look amazing today." Yes, or whatever it is, But that was 4 years ago. That was not in the realm of I could do that, and I would try it, and it would feel weird, but whatever it takes to just start to push that forward, and then give yourself. Again, it's a healing journey. You may take 10,000 steps forward and 3 back, and the 3 back feel like terrible.
Right.
Just it's okay. It's not, there's nothing perfect about it. You don't have to be perfect. Just do what works for you.
Wow. I love that. I was thinking as you were talking about the physical thing and how I know without any doubt that a lot of the physical challenges that I face today, health-wise, come from emotional experience in my past. I think about all of the years that I was made to feel bad because I was too sensitive, or I cried too much, or I felt too strong about things. Yeah. And so once I kept hearing people say that, it silenced me. And I wouldn't speak it, but I still felt it.
Yep.
And so even right now, there's some days I have heart palpitations. And I was talking to my heart doctor a few weeks ago about it. And she said, well, I don't see anything from the test or anything like that as to a reason why. She said, let me ask you this question. Are you feeling stressed at the time when these palpitations take place? Yep. And I stopped for a minute and thought about it. And every time I feel overwhelmed or stressed or whatever, my heart rate starts going off.
Yep.
So you are absolutely correct. We have got to not just heal our emotions. We have not got just to focus on our spiritual being, but we have got to fix our physical as well.
Yeah. Well, and that's like you said, I've heard so many stories on my podcast. Heart palpitations, stomach issues is mine, back pain. There was a lady who went through 4 surgeries and there was nothing wrong with her. And until she recognized it was trauma related, she healed herself. The pain was gone as soon as she started doing that work, because she put them together. And that just, like you said, 100% across the board, doesn't matter what your trauma is, not expressing emotions is part of trauma. If they can't be expressed, because emotions are energy in motion, if they don't have motion, they will get stored and they will stay in your physical body. Yeah. And so and yoga is great. Walking, just walking. It doesn't have to be an elaborate routine or anything
Yeah.
big, but physically healing that body is huge.
And it's funny because, like, a lot of times when I say, "Oh, I'm having one of those days where I'm in so much pain," and somebody will always say to me, "Oh, you need to get up and go walk outside," and I'm like, "You need to shut up because because then I just tell you that I'm hurting. I don't feel like walking, da 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 da." But then the days that I can, now, there are all days when I'm in a flare up, I can't do anything.
Nope.
But
Nope.
when I get myself together mentally and I say, okay, I'm going to walk around outside for maybe 10 minutes,
Yep.
I do notice the difference. And while I'm talking, I'm releasing, like you said, releasing some of the emotions that I have not been able to share or to even be honest about. Sometimes I find myself just like pretending, because I was raised in a Christian home.
Mhm.
And people get upset every time I talk about this, but I don't care. Um,
Yep.
it's my podcast. I say what I want. No, I'm just playing. Um, I was raised in a Christian home, and there's a lot of teaching about speaking things. If it's not the way you want it to be, just say that it is. Like your faith, speak it like you believe it, and then it will happen.
Correct.
I was also raised that if it's anything negative or what bad going on, you don't talk about that
Nope.
because that's not showing faith in God. So
Yep.
then you spend your whole entire life, you don't know what you're supposed to be saying. Like, am I supposed to be real about where I am, or am I supposed to pretend that I am where I want to be? And so
Yeah.
it took me way up into adulthood to realize this crap is not working. Like, I have got to be honest. I was 32 years old, Megan, before I even talked about childhood molestation.
Yep.
Look at all those years that I carried that and
Yep.
didn't even talk about it. And
Nope.
it took me hitting a wall,
Yep.
literally ended up being admitted into a mental health facility to be able to say, okay, this is what I've been dealing with ever since I was like 6 or 7 years old. And
Yep.
it's just jacked me all up on the inside and physically.
Yep.
And that's when the healing started.
Yeah. I can remember that when I first left my ex, and I thought my family was my support. And they literally looked at me and I was like, okay, so they're the people I can finally tell them what's been going on all these years. And they looked at me and said, stop. We don't talk about those things. And I went, "But what?" They're like, we know and we don't want to hear it. And I was like, you can imagine I'm no longer in contact with my family. But speaking that truth and releasing it in just whatever way you need to speak it, there were people who were like, you shouldn't say those things about your ex. And I'm like, the man beat me. We are not going to say it any other way. I'm not going to say, oh, he was a little abusive, or sometimes it was, no, the man beat me. He was terrible. He's a horrible human. I don't have to speak nice. And people are like, oh, you should speak nice about him to your son. I'm like, I don't disparage him to my son. But if my son asks me questions, he's like, Mom, he does EMDR. And so in the therapy, some stuff will come up and he's like, this was the memory I had. And I'm like, that's not how it happened. Do you want to hear what happened?
Yeah.
And he'll be like, yeah. And we talk about it. And he's just like, his eyes will get wide. And he's like, I thought I made it up. And I'm like, no, baby, you may have been in the other room, but you are not making up what you heard. You are not
Yeah.
making up what you experienced. There's power in that. Just no, this is my experience. This is real. And, the people who did that, if they're like, oh, you're making them look better, then they shouldn't have done it.
Right. If you don't want me to tell people you did it, then you shouldn't have done it.
You shouldn't have done it. And it's true. Whether you do it now, today, he's moved on and has another family. And everyone's like, oh, don't you feel bad for them? I'm like, no, she can leave.
Yeah.
Like, I hope not. I hope he doesn't do that. But I can't take that on myself. She could leave too.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
love that. Oh my God. I love that. So, wow. I could just talk to you all day. I guess
I get that a lot. People are like, I could just keep talking. I'm like, yeah, me too.
yeah. But I do want to say again, I don't want to forget this. I want you guys to go to YouTube and find Flow Rising
Mhm.
and um, subscribe to Megan's channel. And there are some conversations there that will literally heal you and change your life. Also, also don't forget to subscribe to the Let's Talk Destiny with Jamie Green channel. Latima is causing problems over here in the comment section. She said she's got a blabber mouth now. She'll tell it all. Um, yeah, because once you get to the point where you realize, oh my God, all these years I've been holding this in and it was killing me. Like
Mhm.
now I'm just gonna tell it. Like if
Yeah.
you didn't want me to tell it, you shouldn't have done it. That's my
Yep.
philosophy.
Yep.
And I was thinking about what you said that the people oftentimes that you think are going to be the safe place, that you think are going to be the ones that support you regardless, are the first ones to say, oh my God, don't do that. Don't say that. Don't tell people that, because they're concerned about how it makes them look. They're not concerned about your healing. They're concerned about how they will look. And I
Yep.
just had to learn, oh, well, this is not about you. This is about me.
That's right. Absolutely.
So as we conclude our conversation today,
Yeah.
how would you summarize your life journey right now? How do you feel about where you are right now?
I feel like I'm at the beginning again. But this time around, it's with intention that I get to, the things that come up don't, they don't have to feel like, oh, I just have to roll with, oh, the family stuff, or because that's how it always is, or that's what people expect of me. I get to just be intentional about who I choose to have in my life, what I say yes to, what I say no to. It's just really my turn to make the choices that I want in my life, and to create that life that fills my heart and fills my soul. Because as much as I surround myself with all those people, this is still my experience and my existence. And I think that's kind of the big point from today, is just that it just is not, and it's not selfish to go, no, I get to choose that. I get to not
Yeah.
choose you. I get to choose you. I get to choose this. And this is really kind of where I'm at these days.
Oh, I just love it. I love it. Well, I do. Again, I want to thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to join me.
Yeah.
And as we mentioned before, when I was your guest, sometimes you reach a point where you say, I don't even know if I'm doing this right. I don't know if I should be doing it. I'm like, might want to quit. Like I was just talking to somebody just earlier today about the podcast thing and how, it's like, I'm not sure people are even listening. Like, are they even hearing what I'm saying? And like when you and I first connected, we were both in that place, that space where we weren't sure if we were going to continue doing the podcast,
Yeah.
but we did, and
Yeah.
so many lives have been blessed and changed because of it. So I want
Yep.
to encourage you to keep doing the great work that you're doing.
Thank you.
You'd be surprised. I don't think you'll ever really know all of the lives that you are touching and all of the people that you're helping to heal. And I am grateful that you took time to spend a few minutes with me today. And I look forward to the next time that we get to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on the show. Like I said, I love being on this end. As much as I love doing my show, it's always nice to do someone else's as well. So thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you so much for joining me. All right, guys, we're going to close this segment out. Again, I want to thank Megan for being with me today. I want to thank those of you who tuned in and those of you who will be watching after we close out the show. Thank you so much. Please go over to YouTube and find Flow Rising with Megan. And I'm telling you, you will not regret it. All right. Everybody have a great day and walk in love. Goodbye.